Hi, everybody. Welcome to the SOM podcast. I have a wonderful guest today. I am with a young lady that is as beautiful as she sounds. And so with that said, we're going to talk about all things opera today. Our guest today is Farah Abdalla, and it is a pleasure to have you on, Farah. I want to call her an opera queen, but she prefers to be called something else. So go ahead, Farah, and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Farah Abdalla. I am a classical voice singer. I'm Egyptian American. I was born in Chicago, raised in Egypt by Egyptian parents. I moved to Chicago after I graduated high school. And yeah, I kind of always was very into classical music, and it really started in, I would say, at like a bit before high school. So in middle school, I went to a German school, so I was introduced to that type of music by my professors. We were always listening to Mozart and other great German composers and other composers as well. And so that's kind of when I started getting interested into classical music in general, and I joined the school choir. And then later, I started to realize that I really enjoy this, and I was just getting more serious with it. And then one day there was an instrumentalist that was entering a competition, a music competition, and she was looking for a singer to enter the competition with as a duet. And so my teacher recommended me to enter the competition with her. And that's when I actually started learning solo opera and classical repertoire. And then I started taking voice lessons and getting even more serious in this art form. And so, yeah, we entered the competition and it was amazing. We had a lot of fun. And then ever since, I didn't stop taking voice lessons. And after I graduated, I didn't know what I wanted to pursue. I know I love to sing and I love classical music, but I also know it's not an easy career to be in. And I also liked marketing a lot. So I kind of combined both, and I majored in both, and I graduated.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
So wonderful. I've always been fond of the arts. I've always had a passion for music. I've always loved classical music and classical music, and I had an appreciation for the opera. But I could never find anyone to go to the opera with me.
Yes.
No, what I did, I worked across from the Lyric Opera in Chicago. And I said, you know what, if I don't have anybody to go to the opera with me, I'm walking my butt in there and I am going to expose myself to the arts a little bit further and appreciate it for as much as I could. So I did that. There was one friend, I take that back, that she goes to the opera frequently, but our schedules kept colliding and I couldn't find anyone else. And then the stars lined up. I walked across the street. It was super cold. There were people dressed to the nines. If anyone knows me, I wear all black all the time, except for a few pieces in my wardrobe. Has to be a really special occasion that I don't wear all black. But at any rate, I walked in all black, and it was snowy, cold, and slushy. And these women had on these heels and long dresses, and some people were casual. And I was somewhere in between, but I felt right at home. Except I think I chose the wrong opera for me, perhaps, on my first go round. I'm pretty open to anything, but I don't like horror. So this one particular one was all gray and dark, and there were demons everywhere, and it was haunted, and there was blood rolling down the stairs, and I'm like, oh my. But I could appreciate it. The symphony was amazing. The music was just beautiful. The voices were melodic and full of harmony. And it was just, it captivated me and mesmerized me. So I go to another, and my next was very colorful. It was much like a Broadway musical production. I mean, it literally had that much color, the costumes, the top hats, and the ladies shimmying their dresses and singing atop their voices. It was beautiful. I laughed. It was so funny. And then my next three were tragic. Of course, opera wouldn't be opera without someone getting shanked. Pedestrian terms. So it was very amusing for me. But the women that were dying were sick, and they were just, and the men were distraught over losing their women. And it was so beautiful. I was like in tears. I'm like, oh my God. But I mean, it was beautiful. Just the art of it, the artistry just captivated my soul. And so I love opera, and I love classical music as well. I like all genres of music, but I was fascinated with classical music and opera. And so I did most of my, they're not concerts. They're, what do you call them in opera? You wouldn't call it a
Sorry,
concert.
I'm having problems with connection. Can you
Oh,
hear
I'm
me
sorry.
well?
Sometimes that happens when we're virtual. We're in different states right now. So just tell me when you catch up, if you can hear me. Are we
Okay,
good?
I hear you now. What was your question? Yeah.
So what do you call an opera when you go multiple times? You would say, I've been to the opera, but you don't call it a concert. You don't call it a musical. You don't call it a play. What would you call it?
It's an opera. That's what
Yeah,
it is. Like,
opera.
yeah.
And so I learned that opera has theater in it. It has music. It has accompaniment. It's got just a cast of characters that just sing their hearts and souls out. And I love that.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a form of art that is sort of like the house of many other art forms, because we have poetry, we have like music composition, and then we have costumes, so we have fashion, we have set design. So it really like is a home for all art forms, which is why I think it's very special. And it has dance, has everything.
Yeah, it's quite entertaining. And for those of you out there that haven't gone to an opera, I would encourage you to do so. It is fascinating. It is fascinating. But pay attention, because there is just subtleties everywhere, and you'll miss it. You know, you'll miss the point. You'll miss, you know, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And so
Yeah, and also to that, I want to add that like often opera has like a bad perception, or like people would think that, oh, like what is that? Just people screaming, or they like we won't understand anything and it's in a different language. But really, first of all, like now in almost all like opera houses and stages, they also always have like subtitles, so you can always read while whatever they're singing is happening like live. And also you can sort of just understand from like the movement, the expression, the acting. You could just feel the overall atmosphere, and it's just it has a glory because it's so like lively, and it's so beautiful, like it's so colorful.
it
So
is.
it is a good experience to have. Like I have a lot of friends that were always like so critical of opera, and then when I take them with me, they change their minds. They're always like, oh, okay, we understand why you like it. It's like, it's very interesting.
Yeah. Have they heard you sing?
Most of them have, some haven't.
Oh my gosh. Well, there's time for an event I hear that's coming up where you'll be debuting at in a certain area, and we'll talk about that later. But I can't wait. I can't wait. Perhaps you can have your friends file in and hear you. I mean, it's something that art
Yeah.
is just a beautiful thing. I participate in various art forms. So I had just an overwhelming appreciation for it. I do some poetry, I always have. I started out as a theater major in college, but
Oh yeah.
yeah. And I am convinced I wasn't big in it in high school. I liked productions and I knew that I could write. And I always loved public speaking and poetry. I was very, very, very shy. I had a great social life, but I was very shy to perform. And so I thought everybody's going to be looking at me, waiting for me to goof up and so forth. So I never really liked getting out there performing, or preparing for it. It's kind of daunting and it makes you a little nervous. And so, but now, because I'm just so fluid in what I like to do, I have a greater appreciation for it. So when I write, it's just pure beauty coming out, the creativity, it just starts flowing. I mean, I've gotten up at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and start writing. I mean, that's when I'm kind of at my best, when everything is settled and I'm not really focused on the day. And I can pop up and get started on 100 pages of a novel. I mean, it just starts flowing, or I could write poetry. But anyways, circling back the wagon, I like to perform, and I'm going to ask you what it's like and what it was like your first time getting on the stage. For me, I was asked to do some poetry. Someone heard me in my dorm reciting, and so my friends got together and they said, "You got to do this. You got," and I was petrified. I'm like, "No, I just do this for fun." And so someone pretty famous came to our campus and they asked if I could introduce them and do that poem they heard me do. And I did. And it was in an auditorium. And the crowd was like, they liked it. And it shocked me. It almost made me faint. I was just that overwhelmed. And he liked me. So he had me go to every university or wherever he performed, if I could permit, my schedule could permit when I was at the university, to follow along with him, introduce him, and say that one particular poem. And it's so funny that, or maybe perhaps a little coincidental, that you're from Egypt. And the first poem that I recited was talks about Nefertiti in Egypt and the Nile and the cradle of civilization being the continent of Africa, which is so rich with resources and so forth. So I always start my poetry with that one particular poem, and it's called Ego Tripping by Nikki Giovanni. Yeah, so it has significance for me. I wish I could sing it, but I have no voice. That part of the fine arts I did not get.
Yeah.
Tell me
Well, you
about-
have all the other parts.
I have a few. I don't have all the other, but singing, I know I don't have. I used to get in the mirror. We had this big picture mirror in our living room. There were 10 kids. So we were kind of like the Jackson 5. And so it's 5 girls and 5 boys. I was the youngest. So they were always kicking me around. Get out of here. You're in the way of our production. So they'd get up and they'd be singing with hairbrushes and fake microphones.
Oh, that's so
And
cute.
I would try to get up there and do it again. They would kick little sis out of the production. But we used to do plays when we were little on our patio and invite everybody over for like a quarter. And I mean, these productions were big productions for us. Like we had curtains strung up by whatever we could find, and we had props and costumes. It's kind of funny to think about it now, but we had just the best growing up. And so I guess it's always been in my DNA, but I was a really fearful performer because I didn't want people hanging on to every word. And to this day, Farah, I do not memorize any of my poems. I don't, because it's gonna be like work. And if I stumble, I can't improvise because it's rigid. if I memorize it. So I always read it from a book, and each production that I do, and I don't do them often, I do them maybe, I used to do them every 5 years or so, but now it's been 10 years since I performed. And I did one recently. It was only an audience of 40, but I just did my thing. It was so much, I just have fun with it. So tell me about your first production, and when you first sang, what you felt like.
So the very first time I sang in front of people alone was actually in that competition I was telling you about earlier. And I was terrified. I
Oh,
was so scared. And it wasn't even that big of an audience, and it was like mostly parents and like fellow students from different schools, but I was so scared.
oh.
I was still young. I was like, I don't know, 14 or something. But yeah, it was good for a 14-year-old.
Oh, I bet it
But
was fantastic.
yeah, I think we ended up getting like first or second place or something like that,
Oh,
which was
wow,
really good for like
it
a
was
first time.
good.
Yeah. But I was just so scared because you have like it takes a lot of vulnerability to be in front of people and to show them, like it's sort of like showing people a piece of who you are, because it's all about you and your interpretation to the music, to the lyrics, everything. Like the poetry, you just need to be raw in a way for the audience to really connect with you, and that's really hard to do. It's really
Yeah,
really hard to like let go and just let the music drive you. So that was something that I was terrified of. And
yes,
yeah, just throughout the years I've been like getting better at it, getting more courageous. And yeah, like right now I really enjoy being on stage, especially within like an opera with like costume and like fellow like singers and like interacting on stage and just like creating something together. It's like a sense of community. And that's
yes.
what I love most about opera too,
Mhm.
is that I really like it. It's sort of, it's very satisfying. I don't know how to explain it. It just makes you feel like you're doing something that has meaning.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I can totally relate to that. You were saying that you were young, maybe 14 years old, and so it was a little scary getting out there. And I think I was a little bit older than you, but not much more. And I think I was what, 16 going on 17, maybe just turned 17 at the university. And man, it was scary to me. And I'm like, well, this guy, and I don't want to say his name because I didn't get permission to. So I'm like, he's big. What is with me to introduce him? But I had a professor that once again asked me to recite it because as a theater major, there was one teacher, I don't recall her name, but I could clearly see her. She was all of 4'11" with a thunderous voice. And she taught me how to inflect and pull from my diaphragm and really use my voice. And she would be so hard on me. She'd be like, no, no, no. And I'm like, but I did it 3 times. And you feel like breaking down. You feel like you want to cry because it gets you to a vulnerable place.
Yes.
I think that's the point.
Yeah, and speaking of crying, like I've cried so many times throughout the years in my voice lessons because it just takes so much practice and so much energy, like, and it takes so much time for your voice to develop. And like most people think, oh, a singer can just sing like
It
that.
just
Like, it
happens.
happens. Exactly. And it's not like that at all. Like, it takes so much dedication and so much energy and so much time. And so it's so frustrating sometimes when you can't reach something that you want to reach, or you can't, your voice is not ready yet to sing something that you want to sing, and it gets really
Yes.
frustrating.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's the same with like all arts, I would say, like, or like most arts, like it takes a lot of work and a lot of dedication, and people usually don't really understand that.
Yeah, they just go. And if you're having an off night, it's awful.
Exactly.
You know, if you're having a good night, they tell everybody, you
Yeah.
know, so it's one of those things that just, the arts is fascinating because you can't really plan some things. Some things just happen organically. You know, you prepare and prepare and prepare. I'm a perfectionist. I don't know about you, but I was timing. I had 7 poems in this goofy little presentation that I did not long ago. And I had to time it to the music, and it had to be right, and it had to be on. And if I flubbed a little bit, I had to be able to pivot. And so I did flub one time on one poem, but I was able to pivot. And I hope that it was seamless for the audience. They seemed to enjoy it. And after that, I took my shoes off. I had on these really high heels, and I took my shoes off and I said, I'm having a Joss Stone moment. Bear with me. And they started laughing. They were like, who's Joss Stone? I said, you'll figure it out in a moment. I took my shoes off and I flipped them to the side. I said, there, now she's good. And
Mm.
I leaned into my next poem. And so sometimes you just have to kind of go with the flow of things. And I couldn't tell you from Adam if a person is flubbing an opera because the symphony is going or the accompaniment is going. And it's just such a fluidity.
Mm.
And the music is just so, it's vulnerable in and of itself, the music, the lyrics sometimes. And when the artist, the singer yourself gets engaged into your song and your theater and you're in your element, it's like you're vulnerable. You're there with the music. And so I wouldn't be able to tell if you flubbed or not.
Yeah.
Do you find that to be true?
In most cases, like we tend to be very critical of ourselves, and sometimes like we think it's the end of the world, but in reality, most of the time people don't even notice.
Yeah, and that's the point. It's like
Yeah.
you are vulnerable and you're into your element, but the average person doesn't even know.
Yeah.
They wouldn't know it. They're just into your art and your craft and how skilled you are at it. And so that takes practice, to your point. It takes practice, lots and lots of practice. I don't know that I could do what you do because it takes so much discipline. I'm disciplined in business. I can throw a report together. I'm a strategist, so my brain is always going. I think I'm made and wired different. And I knew that I was a creative type when I was a little girl. And you probably knew the same.
Yeah. Ever since I was a kid, I was always, so it kind of switched. As a kid, I was into theater and acting, and especially like movies. Like, I wanted to be a movie actor so bad. And I would just like go to my mom, just start like acting out, or like just
I
like
love it.
just like, or if the TV is like, the TV would be playing something dramatic, and I would just kind of like act as if I was in the scene, and just it's just so much fun to
Yeah,
like
yeah.
explore. So it's kind of the same thing, it's just, and singing. So I just added more to what I already love to do, basically.
I love it. So you really are in your element with opera because it takes acting. It not only takes good vocals, you have to act, you have to get the audience to feel the lyrics and to feel the scene.
Mhm.
And so there you go. There's your actress
Yeah. And like
prowess.
Yeah, like for me, I hate public speaking, and I hate public speaking. I don't hate being in the spotlight. I don't know how to explain it, but I do not I most of the time in like regular situations, I do not really like to show like show much or like present myself a lot, but on stage it's so different. I feel like I'm just a different person, and I just like want to like show everyone like this character and just like have so much fun.
Isn't that the truth? You put it perfect. There are so many shy people that are actors, but when you hit that stage, it all goes away. It all goes away. It comes out if you've prepared.
Mhm.
And it's one of the most exhilarating things. It's unlike public speaking. I, for me, I had a very strange university career. I started out as a theater major. I wanted to be an actress, but I think what I wanted to do was be a director and just make great, impactful film. And I figured that I'd be waiting tables for a very, very long time. And I had parents who were older. I'm from a big family, and I knew that I would be on my own one day. And so I didn't think I would be able to have the support system. And I digress from that. But what I knew is that it would take me so long, if at all, to be very good at my craft and my skill as an actress or a director, if I could make it that far. So I went back to what I knew. I was always good at math and science, so I was pre-med. I always wanted to make an impact and cure something and do something for the greater good of humanity. So I was pre-med. And then I took a sociology class, blew my mind. One particular class, and I talked about this in a prior podcast episode, was talked about the law of reciprocity. And I learned how to debate with a university professor from Poland, Krakow. And he lit fire under my feet, Farah. And so my public speaking became less about people watching me and more about proving my point. I remember taking a topic, believe it again or not, way back 30 plus years ago. It was about IVF. And it was just coming out. And so the world, society thought it was like taboo. You can't do that. You have to have a child naturally or nothing else. And I took the opposing argument and I ripped my opponent to shreds, just totally annihilated this guy. And he was so mad at me, but I'm like, well, you don't even believe it yourself. I said, it's not about me believing it. It's about what the law says and arguing the point. And so the university professor says, you have something, you have a gift. And so I think you have that gift. Although you don't like public speaking, you have a vulnerable part of you that could get your point across through your voice, that could understand a scene and just play it out to the nines. And then when you're in costume, oh, I used to love watching Kathleen Battle and her beautiful gowns and her wonderful earrings. And it was just wonderful. I didn't know anything about false eyelashes back then, and I'm sure they all had them on. But I was like, these women have the most amazing eyes, you know, but just the costume is just amazing. And I think it helps you pivot and get into your element. And so, you know, if you wanted to be a public speaker, I'm sure you'd be a dynamic voice, but I think your voice is better crafted and suited right now for the arts.
I agree.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Some people make a living at this and some people can't. I knew it would take me at least 20 years to get up off the ground, and I would be I wouldn't be feeding myself. I wouldn't have taking care of myself the way I should have at that time. And then I didn't want to move to California either. So I was scared of going away. I was just a little wimp. And so today, I take my vulnerabilities and I use them for a greater good. You know, I said there's when you first come into the entryway of my home, there's a ginormous painting, and it says, "Be a voice, not an echo." And I love that. I love that for so many different reasons, because there are so many people that don't use their voice for a greater good. I mean, you don't have to get out there with extreme activism. You could do it through the arts. You could do it through many other outlets, but I think everyone should be a voice if you are gifted to have one. Even signing, communication is that voice. Use it for a greater good. Lift somebody up, encourage someone, and the opera does that for me. When I go, I'm excited. I'm like a kid in a candy store. Can't believe that I go by myself. That kind of blows my mind, that I do it by myself. And I sit there like, it's just the best thing. I love it. I love it. And I love that you're so young and beautiful and into that. It's amazing. I also know one other person that went into opera, perhaps as a major in school, along with music. And that was a girl I grew up with, Carolyn Hedgley. Hi, Carolyn, if you're listening. But she had just a fantastic voice. We were in a pageant together. And she sang, and I did a skit. I'm thinking back on this stuff. I was always that kook that people didn't expect me to do something. That was way ahead of my time. I think I did a skit on how drugs can ruin your life. This was like, must have been 40 something years ago. And my teacher, one of my teachers, I don't think she liked me very much, but was quiet and was a good kid. But anyways, she liked me after I did that skit because she thought it was too grown for me. But I was like, but it's happening, and it's gonna happen, and it's gonna keep happening unless we bring a voice to it. And I did, and I got up there, and everybody, I got a standing ovation. I was Miss Congeniality, and everybody kept saying, "You should have won the pageant. You should have won the pageant." And I go, but I did, because my voice won. And that made me so happy that so many people connected like that. And so the arts has a fascinating way of connecting you with your audience. What makes you feel good about opera besides the obvious?
I like that it communicates stories that are relevant to everyone. I like that it's a way to connect with people, as I explained before, like your community, just it's a sense of community. What else do I like about it? I like so many things about it. I don't know. I enjoy when more people are now getting into the opera, because it's being more accessible to everyone, because a lot of theaters have affordable tickets now, so anyone can go. So that really makes the art form grow and makes people understand the art more and see all the different and very interesting stories that are told within an opera. And especially now with the progression of opera, it's been progressing like throughout the years, and now like stories that are relevant are being made into operas, and so it still communicates very influential messages and things that people should be knowing about and being influenced with. So that's a power that opera has that I think is really important.
That was so beautifully said, that's the power that opera has. It's very influential. And that's the voice. That's the voice of the arts. That's so important. How do you feel about the schools cutting out the fine arts.
It's so sad. It's so sad because it has such a big influence on both the performer and the audience member. Like it makes both people grow, and like often like they cut arts and then they like fund sports. And I'm not saying sports are not important. Sports are important, but the arts is what puts beauty in the world in a way, because it's just a different form of expression. And so it's sort of like stripping people off from like being able to express themselves. And like for me, for example, I'm not really good at like expressing myself with words, but I can with performing. And if I can't have that, then it's gonna be so sad for me. I don't know. Like,
Yeah, yeah. I get it. I 100% get it. When I first found out that, schools were taking fine arts programs away, I go, what are so many going to do? This is their outlet. This is where they express themselves. This is where they can truly take their vulnerability and feel powerful and strong and lend a voice to society. And it's powerful. It's palpable. You can feel it. It's in the music. Oh, the highs and the lows in a symphony. I mean, it just, I think about Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman, not that she was into classical, but she was listening to, I think it was Prince when she was bathing. And it was just all kind of a high for her. And then when she went to the opera for her first time, she was dressed up and she felt beautiful and she felt vulnerable along with the production, and she cried. And it made me cry too in the movie. That's one of my favorite movies, Pretty Woman. But I mean, that vulnerability at the opera was just everything for me because it spoke to fine art. Some people will buy a Chagall, they'll buy a Manet, they'll look at Van Gogh or Tanner, and and it's like that's their fine art. Fine art is something that is incredibly subjective. It's like looking at a really handsome guy to you, or a really handsome woman to a guy, I suppose. It's subjective. Everybody won't like that or like him or like her, but they find the beauty inside of it. And art is that. It's just that, finding the beauty and lending a voice to it so that everyone could be respected and get along and spread that thing in society. So I hope that fine art makes its way back into the schools and the universities outside of just basic majors, so that there could be an appreciation of life. Because at the end of the day, I think that we get together via life and feeling power from within and putting that out in various forms. And sometimes it's in the arts,
Sure.
So your aspiration, Farah.
Sorry, what?
Your aspiration.
What's my aspiration?
Yes.
Well, I hope so I have sort of like short-term goals and then long-term goals. So for short term, I want to pursue a graduate degree in voice, perhaps in Europe. And then and then in the future, I wish to become I am a singer now. I am
Absolutely
I'm
are, Farah. You
but
absolutely are.
yeah, it's just opera career start a bit later. It for singers, it's not like any other form of art, because you have to develop your voice and you have to work on your voice so much, and your voice needs to grow so much. We don't use mics or anything like that. So you have to really work on it. And so like in the future, I want to be able to take part in like big productions and just show the world the beauty of this art form and communicate messages with them and just add beauty to the world. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Would you like to produce one or write one?
Write? No, I hate writing, but I could direct one. I would like to direct one. Yeah.
Oh, that would be amazing. Oh, beautiful. I'd love to see you do that.
Or I could collaborate with a writer. I could like create that plot and like the connections with the different characters, but the writing process itself, I'll leave it to the professionals.
I love it. I love it, love it, love it. Maybe we could get together one day and collaborate. I'll write.
Yeah,
You give
you
me
can
a
write.
topic, I'll write, and you put it together, and we'll put it out there.
Yeah,
The next Hamilton, an opera.
for sure.
That would be so much fun. So much fun. So, who inspired you, Farah, to get out there and just be this creative powerhouse?
There's not one person that has inspired me. I sort of like have inspirations from like different people. My very first voice teacher, she would always like push me forward and push me to like get past my like shyness and like being scared of being on stage. And then, for example, I look up to a lot of opera singers, like for example, Maria Callas. She's an gorgeous
Yes.
singer, and she mastered like the reinterpretation of like so many different or maybe all the work that she did. She like put amazing interpretations. And also I am inspired by another singer. Her name is Fatma Saeed. She is also an Egyptian soprano, and she actually went to the same high school as me. And
Wow.
and yeah, she has an international career now, and she lives in Europe, and she has an awesome career, and I wish to one day become like her. Yeah.
That's awesome. Have you heard of Miriam Anderson?
No.
Okay, she's African American star, and she was just amazing,
Yeah.
amazing, amazing. So look sometime, and you'll see
Yeah.
her.
I'll look
Oh
for
yeah,
it right
there's
now.
so many, so many. Um, so not all opera is Italian opera.
No.
I found that out, and I thought that it was all Italian opera years ago. I was thinking, but there's just so many. And I like what they're doing with the contemporary opera now, infusing like Carmen and even hip hop opera. Some people, purists, might say that's not music or whatever. But yeah, it kind of is. It's just influencing it's showing you the hip hop culture. It's showing you another culture outside of the European culture. And so all of this in the arts is just incredibly important. So I wish you the absolute best. I know that we're going to do a small production at GRND Coffeehouse, and it's going to be set up, and you're going to be all kind of amazing and wonderful. I can't wait. So tell your family, friends, and everybody, because she will sell out pretty darn fast. I'm not sure if our audience knows about like the tiny desk on NPR. So there's only so much room in the coffee house, but around right before the holiday lights season, Farah will debut at GRND Coffeehouse, and we are all kind of excited for you, young lady.
Thank you so much. And yeah, thank you so much for like having me in your beautiful show. I'm so excited. I was so excited to be a part of this.
I can't wait. Will you sing us out on a note?
For sure.
I love it.
Yeah. What language would you like? That would help me pick.
Oh my, just whatever you'd like. But tell the audience what language it is.
Yeah, for sure. I could maybe sing the most popular aria that people would know, which is O mio babbino caro by Puccini. It's an Italian from an Italian opera. So yeah, I could sing that one.
Awesome.
Okay. O mio babbino caro, mi piaceva andare in Porta Rossa a comperar l'anello. Sì, sì, ci voglio andare. E se l'amas serenarno, andrei sul ponte vecchio, ma per buttarmi in arno mi tormento. Oh Deo, vorrei morir. Babbo pietà, pietà. Babbo pietà, pietà.
Bravo. Bravissimo. That was so beautiful.
Thank you.
And that's why we love opera and the arts. Farah Abdalla, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. This is the Souls of Many podcast. Real talk, real news, real people, and real opera queens. Have a great day, everybody.